Folks, we're back again. We apologize. Anyhow, so we will continue and try to get through. We have a couple more minutes. We just want to introduce a few more other points. Colin had one before we'll.
Hi, yeah, just want to interject. In this period, we've seen businesses which relied on discretionary earnings, discretionary spending, lose anywhere from 20 to 40% of their income year over year. This has direct impact over the ability to pay value-added taxes, national insurance, property taxes, and corporation tax. I'll give you an example. One client went from around 70 staff members to about 30 in a 12 months period. And just give you a sense of how critical or how businesses view how they need to plan the business in terms of cash flow. Typically, they prioritize it in terms of payment of salaries and wages first.
Overhead, rent.
Secondly, financing costs, occupant costs, utilities, major vendors. In fact, major vendors are usually third in line behind the banks. The ability, we have to be able to balance our tax obligations against the ability to sustain the business. If we, as some people suggest, you have to do everything to pay your taxes, there comes a point where someone will go out of business because they can't pay all the other obligations. The first obligation is always to employees, and the second obligation is to the people who finance you. And the two people who finance you the most are the bankers and your vendors. Unfortunately, a lot of landlords will tell you they have a problem of collection of arrears, because as much as having access to premises is critical for business, they fall down the line in the payment for their service, because typically the argument will always be, well, what will you do to me? You have a 10,000 square foot building leased to a customer who stops paying you. It is difficult. The process to evict a person takes at least 3 to 6 months. And that then usually goes, you don't normally get that person evicted, you have to lock them out. And you have to have a process, there's a legal process to lock out a tenant as well. So it is not as simple as some of the comments may suggest in terms of prioritizing taxes. One other issue I just want to quickly raise, we have to look in terms of what is really a more practical cycle of paying. I would stick to corporation tax and to a certain extent personal taxes. Other jurisdictions allow for the filing of an extension to file tax returns without penalties. Given the challenges of many small businesses and even medium-sized businesses in order to close their books at year-end and file tax returns, we do need to have a system where a taxpayer can file for extension to file, one. And secondly, we perhaps need to move away from the rigidity of a particular filing deadline to say that companies and businesses then have 6 months to file after their year end, which means there's a continuous process of filing. But we have a pretty static system here in Barbados, which means that if you miss the deadline, you're dead. You're automatically going to default. On average, it allows you about 4 months after your year end to file. But then taxpayers who have like a September year end have actually 5 or 6 months to file. So there's actually some disparities within the system in terms of how long certain taxpayers have and the shortness of time other taxpayers have in terms of filing. So, for example, Solutions in Vincent provides a 3-month window to file after year end. Practically, I think that in Barbados it needs to go to 6 months. Okay. And we also then need to have the ability to file preliminary returns, which would increase compliance, and then amend the final return once financial statements are completed.
Okay.
one of the things that David mentioned is that about finding a more efficient system of doing taxation. Colin had alluded to it, and what really is the cost of the administration of the VAT system, as well as given the impact that it has on businesses from its ability to pay bills because of very not so timely VAT refunds. I think Colin had done a brief calculation where you said that if the VAT was replaced by, you said
a sales tax
of 5% cascading tax, it would give us the same amount of revenue, but it would eliminate
cascading tax.
Well,
you don't have the refunds in the.
You don't have the refunds.
So in the car tax study, which was completed August 2004, and it was on page 11 of the report. I just went back and looked at it today. It was actually the net tax, the net VAT collected as a percentage of the GDP was 10.3%. So it was understating it, but maybe around 7 or 8% would create the cascade that would give you the 10% or 11%. That's already built into the system.
So in other words, like when it comes in at the port, you'll pay a tax,
right?
A sales tax. When you get sold, and so as you go through the system, every time you send it, there's a sales tax added on. In the current process, what happens is when a VAT comes in, you reclaim that back again.
VAT when it comes in at the port.
Yeah. Then
you have VAT when you sell to the customer.
Right. So the offset is then what
the registered customer.
The biggest fail in the system.
That is supposed to come into being on the BRA, but it
right.
hasn't been affected as yet.
The offset, if the offset happens, then you don't have the issue of refunds. On the taxpayer side, it also relieves and reduces the debt payable on the government side.
But let's clarify that though. Offset can be done with. You're talking about is where the taxpayer can automatically offset filing,
and that should happen
rather than filing to wait for the offset.
Exactly. It should be offset on filing because
so when you realize that you had a VAT refund last period, this period you have to pay, you net off the two, you pay any difference, or you'll have a net refund, rather than having to file and wait for them to process that and issue you a refund check for the previous period.
But it goes.
Reduces that impact both on government and on the individual. What it happens, and if you look at it, certain businesses have a particular cycle, and they will generate refunds in a particular period, and they will have some will constantly generate refunds, which is one of the issues that the car tax report actually tackles. And then there are others that will have this cyclical approach. And they will end up with refunds due in their large production or production period, and tax payables in their large income generating period. So the natural cycle, it reduces the administration and the intervention by BRA to come and approve these. And then secondly, it reduces, just simply simplifies the process and makes it run smoother. So we know that once you can offset, you don't have to be crying for the refund.
Okay. Just to wrap up, and hopefully the audio issues aren't as prevalent, I will say that I would hope it's really low. The one thing that I would have been hoping to also see that the BRA would be willing to do is there are a lot of people that obviously have refunds coming in from various tax sources or government period, considering that they're the body, would they be willing to discuss the possibility of offsetting money that is owed to them? Why is that not even an option?
Offset is going to come. The minister said in Parliament 2 days ago that they're moving towards a single taxpayer ID.
Right.
I think that in itself is one of the requirements to allow the offset to be both internal to BRA and probably external to be more seamless.
Right.
All the taxes will show up on one account. So essentially, every time you file, you will have a running account with a balance that is either refund or owing, rather than having 4 or 5 separate accounts.
Exactly.
So I think it's going to happen. I think the issue we have, because part of setting up the BRA, that was one of the.
I know, but you haven't seen it.
So, but there have been the initial feed-in issues, and BRA has some issues to sort out, and I think we will get there. I think our concern is a timeline in terms of, since it has been said it hasn't happened yet, but I think they will get there, and I think the single taxpayer ID is a significant component of being able to do that.
Okay. Considering that we are having a lot of audio issues, I think we will end there for tonight. And next week we will do it on Digicell's Wi-Fi.
Correct.
No promises there.
Well, I've never had any audio or connectivity issues with Digicell. And this is not a plug for Digicell because they're not paying me to do this or to say any of these things. It's just the reality that Digicell usually does not give me any issues.
Normally it's not you or your Digicell feed. We'll see when you have guests.
Well, we'll see what happens when I have guests. But next week we will see what we will see. So I don't know if it's because of flow or the fact that this is Harrison College building. You see, I don't really have too much love for Harrisonians.
It's flow.
We will say it's flow for today. But have a great evening, everyone, and we will see you next week.